They say ignorance is bliss, but I have learned that knowledge is power. For 7 years, I lived in what I thought was a happy marriage with my husband Michael, raising our 2 beautiful children, and building what I believed was our dream life together. I had no idea that everything I thought I knew about my life was built on lies. Michael was the perfect husband on the surface. He was successful, charming, and seemed devoted to our family. He worked as a senior marketing executive at a prestigious firm, made excellent money, and always made sure we had everything we needed. He never missed our children's school events, always remembered anniversaries and birthdays, and seemed genuinely happy with our life together. But there were signs that I chose to ignore, little inconsistencies that I explained away because I trusted him completely. He would work late more and more frequently, often claiming he had important client meetings or urgent projects that could not wait. His phone became his constant companion, and he would get defensive if I even glanced at it casually. He started paying more attention to his appearance, buying expensive clothes and cologne, working out obsessively, and spending money on things he had never cared about before. When I would comment on these changes, he would say he was just trying to stay competitive in his field, and that his appearance was important for client meetings. The business trips became more frequent too. Michael would be gone for days at a time, always with perfectly reasonable explanations about conferences, training seminars, or important client presentations. He would call me every night from his hotel room, telling me how much he missed me and the kids, how boring the conferences were, and how he could not wait to get home to his family. I believed every word because I had no reason not to. Michael had never given me any concrete reason to doubt his faithfulness. He was still affectionate with me, still engaged with our children, still the man I had fallen in love with and married 8 years ago. The truth came crashing down 6 months ago in the most mundane way possible. Michael had left for work in a hurry that morning, forgetting his phone on the kitchen counter. This was unusual because his phone was practically attached to his hand, but I figured he would realize it was missing and come back for it before his first meeting. When the phone started buzzing with notifications, I initially ignored it, but it kept buzzing over and over, with an urgency that seemed strange for normal work communications. After about 20 minutes of constant alerts, I picked up the phone to see if it was some kind of emergency that I should call Michael about. That is when I saw her name, Jessica. Message after message from Jessica, with preview text that made my blood run cold. Missing you already, baby. Last night was incredible. Cannot wait until we do not have to hide anymore. She has no idea how lucky she is. My hands were shaking as I stared at the phone. There had to be some explanation, some misunderstanding. Maybe it was a work colleague playing some kind of inappropriate joke. Or maybe someone had gotten hold of Michael's phone number by mistake. But deep down, I already knew the truth. The signs I had been ignoring for months suddenly made perfect sense. The late nights, the business trips, the new clothes, the secretive behavior with his phone. It all added up to the one thing I had never wanted to believe was possible. I knew Michael's passcode because we had always been open about our phones. We shared everything, or at least I thought we did. With trembling fingers, I unlocked his phone and opened his messages with Jessica. What I found destroyed me. There were thousands of messages between them, going back over 2 years. The conversation was intimate, romantic, and sexual in ways that made me physically sick. But worse than the explicit content was the casual way they talked about me and our life together. How was your weekend with the family? Jessica would ask. Boring as always, Michael would respond. Janet spent the whole time complaining about the house and the kids. I just smile and nod until I can get away and think about you. Poor baby having to pretend to be the perfect husband, she would write back. Soon you will not have to pretend anymore. I know. I just have to be patient a little longer. Once the kids are a bit older and I have my finances sorted out, I can finally leave her, and we can be together properly. I love you so much. I hate that she gets to wake up next to you every morning when it should be me. I love you too. She means nothing to me anymore. This whole life is just an act I put on until I can be free to start my real life with you. I spent 3 hours reading through their messages, each one feeling like a knife to my heart. They had been having an affair for over 2 years, meeting regularly at hotels, taking romantic weekend trips together while I thought Michael was away on business, and planning a future that involved him leaving me and our children. The messages revealed that Jessica was a colleague at his company, someone I had actually met at several work functions. She was younger than me, unmarried, and had no children. In their conversations, she often made cruel comments about my appearance, my personality, and my role as a mother. Does she still wear those frumpy mom clothes everywhere? Jessica had written after a company party, where I had accompanied Michael. Always, he had replied. She has completely given up on herself since having kids. It is honestly embarrassing sometimes. Well, at least you will not have that problem with me. I actually care about staying attractive for my man. That is just one of the million reasons why I love you instead of her. The casual cruelty of their conversations was almost worse than the affair itself. These were not just two people who had fallen in love and made a mistake. This was calculated, ongoing deception, with both of them actively mocking and despising me while I remained completely oblivious. But the messages also revealed something else. Michael was not planning to leave me anytime soon. Despite all his promises to Jessica about starting their real life together, he was actually quite comfortable with his double life. He liked having a stable home base, a wife who took care of everything domestic, and children who adored him, while also having his exciting secret romance on the side. In fact, some of his messages to Jessica suggested that he was not sure he ever wanted to leave his marriage at all. Sometimes I think we have the perfect situation, he had written to her just a few weeks earlier. I get the best of both worlds, stability at home and passion with you. Why rock the boat? Jessica had not been happy with this message, and they had argued about his commitment to leaving me. She wanted him to file for divorce immediately, but Michael kept making excuses about timing, finances, and the children. Reading those messages, I realized that Michael was never going to leave me voluntarily. He was perfectly content to keep living his double life indefinitely, lying to both Jessica and me, keeping us both on the hook while he enjoyed the benefits of having two relationships. That realization changed everything for me. If Michael was not going to end this situation, then I was going to end it for him. But I was not going to do it the way he expected. I could have confronted him immediately, screamed and cried and demanded explanations. I could have thrown him out of the house and filed for divorce right away. But that would have been playing into his hands. Michael was prepared for the possibility that I might discover his affair eventually. He probably had stories ready, excuses prepared, and plans for how to minimize the damage to himself. Instead, I decided to play the long game. I carefully put Michael's phone back exactly where he had left it, and went about my day as normal. When he came home from work that evening, panicked about his missing phone, I helped him look for it, and acted just as confused as he was when we found it on the kitchen counter. I must have left it there this morning, he said, clearly relieved. I cannot believe I did not notice it was missing until just now. You have been so stressed with work lately, I replied sympathetically. Maybe you should take a vacation soon. He smiled and kissed my forehead, the same affectionate gesture he had been making for years. But now I knew it was completely hollow, just another part of his elaborate performance. That night, I lay in bed next to my husband, listening to him breathe, and began planning my revenge. Over the next 6 months, I became a different person while appearing to remain exactly the same. On the surface, I was still the devoted wife and mother, taking care of our home, supporting Michael's career, and maintaining our family's routines. But underneath, I was systematically preparing to destroy everything he had built his lies upon. The first thing I did was gather evidence. I installed monitoring software on our home computers and Wi-Fi network that would track all internet activity and communications. I hired a private investigator to document Michael's affair, getting photographs and video evidence of him with Jessica at hotels, restaurants, and her apartment. I also began secretly consulting with the best divorce attorney in our city. I learned about asset division, child custody laws, and how adultery would impact our proceedings. I discovered that in our state, infidelity could significantly affect alimony and property division, especially with proper documentation. But gathering evidence was just the beginning. I also started quietly protecting our family's assets and preparing for our financial future. I opened my own bank accounts and began slowly transferring money into them. I made copies of all our financial documents, tax returns, and investment statements. I even started my own retirement account and began contributing to it regularly. At the same time, I began building my case for full custody of our children. I documented every instance where Michael missed school events due to his work commitments. Every time he was unavailable for family emergencies, because he was with Jessica. Every lie he told our kids about where he was going and what he was doing. The private investigators' reports painted a clear picture of a man who was prioritizing his affair over his family responsibilities. While I was home alone with sick children, Michael was at expensive restaurants with his mistress. While I was attending parent-teacher conferences by myself, he was taking romantic weekend trips with Jessica. But I also had a more personal form of revenge in mind. I wanted Michael and Jessica to experience the same kind of humiliation and betrayal that they had put me through. I wanted them to understand what it felt like to have your entire reality shattered by someone you trusted. I began planning their downfall as carefully as they had planned their affair. Through the monitoring software, I could see that Michael and Jessica were planning a romantic getaway for their 2-year anniversary. They were going to spend a long weekend at an expensive resort, telling me that Michael had a work conference, and telling her friends that she was visiting family out of state. This was going to be my moment. I booked myself a room at the same resort for the same weekend, telling Michael that I was going to visit my sister. I arranged for our children to stay with my parents, and I prepared to confront them both in the most public and humiliating way possible. But before I could execute that plan, an opportunity arose that was even better. Michael's company was having their annual holiday party, a formal event that all employees and their spouses were expected to attend. I had been to this party every year since Michael started working there, and I knew it would be attended by all the senior executives, their families, and important clients. Jessica would be there as an employee, and I would be there as Michael's wife. Neither of them would expect me to know about their affair, so they would probably try to act normal while secretly communicating and flirting with each other right in front of me. It was the perfect opportunity to expose them both in front of everyone who mattered in Michael's professional life. I spent weeks preparing for the holiday party like it was the most important event of my life. I bought a stunning new dress, got my hair and makeup done professionally, and made sure I looked absolutely radiant. I wanted to look like a woman who was confident, beautiful, and completely in control. I also prepared my evidence package. I had printed copies of Michael and Jessica's most damning text messages, photos from the private investigator showing them together, and a detailed timeline of their affair. I put everything in elegant folders, ready to distribute to key people at the party. The night of the party, Michael commented on how beautiful I looked and how excited he was to show me off to his colleagues. The irony was not lost on me that he was proud to have me on his arm while secretly planning to replace me with the woman who would also be in the room. We arrived at the party and immediately began mingling with Michael's colleagues and their spouses. I played the role of the perfect executive's wife, charming and gracious, making conversation and laughing at appropriate times. Michael was clearly pleased with how well I was representing him. About an hour into the party, I spotted Jessica across the room. She was wearing a red dress that was slightly too tight and slightly too short for a professional event, clearly trying to get Michael's attention. When she saw us together, I caught a flash of jealousy and resentment in her eyes before she quickly looked away. Throughout the evening, I watched Michael and Jessica try to navigate the situation. They would make eye contact across the room, exchange subtle smiles, and find excuses to be near each other without being obvious about it. They probably thought they were being discreet, but I could see every glance, every gesture, every moment of secret communication. At one point, Jessica approached us during a conversation with Michael's boss and his wife. She introduced herself to me as if we had never met before, extending her hand with a fake smile. "You must be Janet," she said sweetly. "Michael talks about you and the children all the time. You are so lucky to have such a devoted family man." The audacity was breathtaking. This woman, who had been sleeping with my husband for 2 years and making cruel jokes about me in their private messages, was standing in front of me acting like she was just a friendly colleague meeting the boss's wife. "Thank you," I replied, matching her fake sweetness. "Michael is wonderful. We are so blessed to have such a strong, honest marriage. Trust is everything in a relationship, do you not think?" Jessica's smile faltered slightly, but she recovered quickly. Absolutely. Trust is so important. Michael looked uncomfortable during this exchange, probably worried that something in our conversation might reveal their secret. He quickly steered us toward another group of people, making some excuse about wanting to introduce me to someone else. I spent the rest of the evening watching them, taking mental notes of every interaction, every secret glance, every moment of barely concealed intimacy. They had no idea that I was not just an oblivious wife making small talk at a company party. I was a woman gathering final evidence for the complete destruction of their carefully constructed lies. As the evening wound down and people began making their farewell speeches, I knew it was time to act. I had been waiting for this moment for months, and I was not going to let it pass. I approached the microphone that had been set up for the evening's presentations and asked if I could say a few words. The party organizers were happy to let the wife of one of their senior executives address the group, thinking I was going to give some generic thank you speech about what a wonderful company it was. The room quieted down as everyone turned their attention to me. Michael looked surprised but pleased, probably thinking I was going to say something complimentary about him and his work. Good evening, everyone. I began, my voice clear and confident. I want to thank you all for such a lovely evening. It has been so wonderful to meet my husband's colleagues and to see the professional family that he spends so much time with. I paused and looked directly at Jessica, who was standing near the back of the room with a glass of wine in her hand. In fact, I have gotten to know some of Michael's colleagues quite well over the past few months, even though they might not realize it. You see, I have been doing some research into my husband's work life, and I have discovered some very interesting things about the relationships he has built here. Michael's face went pale. He was starting to realize that something was wrong, but he had no idea how wrong things were about to get. For instance, I learned that my husband has been working very closely with Jessica Morrison from the marketing department. Very closely indeed. In fact, they have been collaborating on a special project for over 2 years now. Jessica had gone completely white and was staring at me in horror. Several people in the room were starting to look confused, sensing that something unusual was happening but not sure what it was. This project has required them to spend a lot of time together outside of normal office hours. Weekend meetings, overnight planning sessions, intimate brainstorming retreats. They have been so dedicated to this project that they have documented every moment of their collaboration in detailed written communications. I reached into my purse and pulled out the folder containing their text messages. Would you like to hear some examples of their professional correspondence? The room was completely silent now. Everyone could sense that something dramatic was about to happen, but they were not sure what or how to react. Michael was frantically trying to get my attention, making subtle gestures for me to stop talking, but I ignored him completely. Here is a message from Jessica to Michael just last week. I continued, opening the folder. Quote, I cannot stop thinking about last night. You were incredible. I love you so much and I cannot wait until we do not have to sneak around anymore. End quote. The gasps from the audience were audible. People were starting to pull out their phones, realizing they were witnessing a major scandal unfold. And here is Michael's response. I continued. Quote, I love you too, baby. Janet has no idea how miserable she makes me. Soon we will be together, and I will never have to pretend to be happy with her again. End quote. Jessica had dropped her wine glass and was pushing through the crowd toward the exit, but I was not finished with her yet. Jessica, where are you going? I called out. I have so many more examples of your professional collaboration to share. Like this message where you called me a frumpy, boring housewife, and said you could not wait to replace me. Or this one where you and my husband made fun of our children, and discussed how much better your life would be without them. The room erupted in shocked murmurs and uncomfortable laughter. Michael's boss was staring at him with a look of complete disgust and disbelief. I also have photographs, I announced, pulling out the private investigator's pictures. Here are some images of Michael and Jessica's work meetings at the downtown Marriott. And here they are having a business lunch that lasted 4 hours and ended in Jessica's apartment. Michael finally found his voice. Janet, stop this right now. You are making a scene. I am making a scene? I laughed. Michael, you have been making a scene for 2 years. You have been performing in a play where you pretend to be a loving husband and father, while secretly planning to abandon your family for your colleague. I am just letting everyone see the real show. I turned back to the audience, most of whom were staring in fascination and horror. I want everyone here to know exactly what kind of man they work with. Michael has been lying to me, to our children, to all of you, and to Jessica about his intentions and his character. He has been living a double life while everyone around him believed he was trustworthy and honorable. And Jessica, I continued, looking directly at her as she tried to hide behind other party guests, has been actively participating in the destruction of a family with 2 young children. She has sent messages calling me ugly and stupid, making jokes about my children, and planning to take my place in their lives. Michael's boss stepped forward, his face red with anger and embarrassment. This is completely inappropriate behavior from employees of this company. Michael, Jessica, you will both be in my office first thing Monday morning. But I was not done yet. There is one more thing I want to share, I announced. Michael has been telling Jessica for months that he is going to leave me and marry her. But what Jessica does not know is that Michael has also been telling me how much he loves our family, and how committed he is to our marriage. In fact, just last week he told me he wanted to have another baby. Jessica's face crumpled in shock and betrayal. She had believed Michael's promises about leaving me, and now she was learning that he had been lying to her too. So you see, I concluded, Michael has not just been cheating on me. He has been cheating on both of us. He never intended to leave our marriage. He just wanted to keep both relationships going indefinitely, lying to everyone involved. With that final revelation, I gathered my evidence folders and walked toward the exit. The room was in complete chaos, with people talking loudly, taking pictures, and trying to process what they had just witnessed. Michael followed me out to the parking lot, desperate and panicked. "Janet, please let me explain," he begged. "This is not what it looks like. I made a mistake, but I love you and our family. We can work through this." I turned to face him calmly. "Michael, I have been working through this for 6 months. While you thought I was oblivious, I was preparing. While you were planning your future with Jessica, I was protecting our children's future. While you were lying to everyone who cared about you, I was documenting every lie." "What do you want?" he asked, finally realizing the extent of what had just happened. "I want a divorce," I said simply. "I want full custody of our children. I want you to move out of our house immediately. And I want you to understand that your lies have consequences." The aftermath was swift and devastating for both Michael and Jessica. By Monday morning, videos of my speech had spread throughout their company and beyond. Michael was fired immediately for conduct unbecoming of a senior executive, and Jessica was transferred to a different department with a formal reprimand in her file. Their affair was over within days. Jessica was furious that Michael had been lying to her about his intentions, and Michael was angry that Jessica had not been discreet enough to prevent the whole scandal. They blamed each other for the disaster, and their 2-year relationship ended in mutual hatred and recrimination. The divorce proceedings went exactly as I had planned. With all the evidence of Michael's adultery, his lies about his work commitments, and his prioritization of his affair over his family responsibilities, I was awarded full custody of our children, the house, and a significant portion of our assets. Michael was required to pay substantial child support and alimony, but his job prospects were limited after being fired from such a prominent position for a public scandal. He had to move in with his parents and take a much lower-paying job at a smaller company. The professional consequences followed him everywhere. In our industry, everyone knew about the holiday party incident. Michael became known as the executive who was publicly exposed by his wife for cheating with a colleague. No reputable company wanted to hire someone with that kind of reputation. Jessica fared no better. She had to leave the company entirely after the scandal made her position untenable. Her reputation in the professional community was destroyed, and she struggled to find employment that matched her previous level. But the personal consequences were perhaps the most fitting. Both Michael and Jessica learned what it felt like to have their private lives exposed and humiliated in public. They experienced the shame of having everyone they knew discover their lies and deceptions. Michael lost his children's respect and trust. Our son and daughter, who had adored their father, were devastated to learn that he had been planning to leave them for another woman. They refused to see him for months after the divorce, and their relationship with him has never recovered. Jessica lost her friends and her social circle. Nobody wanted to be associated with someone who had participated in such a public and cruel betrayal of a family. She became isolated and lonely, exactly the kind of life she had once pitied me for living. As for me, I discovered that I was stronger and more capable than I had ever imagined. Taking control of the situation, planning my revenge, and executing it flawlessly gave me a confidence and sense of power that I had never experienced before. I also learned that justice is not always served automatically. Sometimes you have to take an active role in making sure that people face consequences for their actions. Michael and Jessica thought they could lie and cheat and manipulate without any real repercussions. They were wrong. The children and I built a new life that was honest, stable, and full of genuine love and support. We were no longer living with the constant stress of Michael's lies and deceptions, even though we had not realized how much that stress was affecting us at the time. I eventually started dating again, and found someone who valued honesty, commitment, and family in the same way I did. Someone who would never dream of living a double life or betraying the trust of people who loved him. Michael occasionally tries to contact me, usually when he is having financial difficulties or problems with his current relationship. He seems to think that enough time has passed for us to be friendly, that I should be willing to help him or give him advice. But I have no interest in maintaining any kind of relationship with someone who spent years lying to my face while planning to abandon our family. The man I thought I was married to never really existed. He was just a character that Michael played while he lived his real life in secret. The holiday party was 2 years ago, but people still talk about it. It has become legendary in our professional community, a cautionary tale about the dangers of workplace affairs and the importance of treating your family with respect. Some people think what I did was cruel or excessive. They believe I should have handled the situation privately, that public humiliation was too harsh a punishment for adultery. But those people do not understand what it is like to discover that your entire life has been built on lies. They do not know what it feels like to realize that while you were raising children and building a home and supporting someone's career, that person was secretly despising you and planning to replace you. Michael and Jessica made their choices. They chose to lie, to cheat, to betray trust, and to plan the destruction of a family. They chose to make cruel jokes about me and my children while pretending to care about us. I simply made sure that their choices had consequences. I made sure that their lies were exposed and their true characters were revealed to everyone who mattered in their lives. That is not cruelty. That is justice. And it was the most satisfying thing I have ever done. If this story of ultimate betrayal and perfect revenge gave you chills, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button for Revenge Janet, and turn on notifications because we deliver the most satisfying karma stories on the internet. Share your own cheating spouse stories in the comments. Your experience might be our next viral revenge tale. Remember, liars and cheaters always get what they deserve in the end. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next story where justice strikes again.